Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Jared Brandon Wild Pickups.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Hey, it's me, Todd Novak. We are super happy to have you with us listening to our show, the Guitar Knobs podcast.
Hello.
Yes, welcome one and all, wherever you are listening, wherever you're listening to in the world. We are super happy that you are listening and digging what we're doing, hopefully. Hey, we have somebody super special on the line. That's you.
That's me.
You did it.
Hey, everybody. I see what you mean now. Hey, everybody. John Snyder from Electronic Audio Experiments coming in from Boston.
Yes, excellent. We are super excited. And what do you do for all those who may not know your full name, your full legal name?
I make guitar pedals, and that's mostly it.
Cool. And he
Just
also
pedals.
sounds exactly like the bigger of the two Johns in the They Might Be Giants, which is really uncanny.
Who knew?
So, yes, we're going to get all up into John's business about his guitar pedal making. He makes some mighty fine pedals, and I'm sure that you all have seen at least one or two of them out there on the internets. They are very exciting. If you have to say it's exciting, does that mean it's not exciting? These pedals are, they're good.
Yeah, they're
They're
good.
compensating.
Yes. I could go down a metaphor list anyways. So, dudes, let's take care of a few things real quick. Hey, I just want to give a massive shout out to Rode Microphones for supplying our studio recording microphone equipment.
Procasters.
Yes, the Procaster microphones and articulated arms. Pretty cool stuff. We are greatly appreciative of their help and their willingness to lend a hand for our podcast. Also, for the things on our heads right now, the Grado headphones. These things are top notch. We really, really love them. They are handmade by a very small family in a very small building in a very small town called Brooklyn,
Thank you, small family.
New York.
Isn't that the third largest city in the United States? Brooklyn by itself?
I don't think so. Maybe? I don't know.
I thought it was.
Well, it just seems small.
They make
don't
great
know.
Grados.
You think Brooklyn is small?
They're great.
Well, compared to Los Angeles, yes. Sheesh.
They're prestige.
Yes. Anyways, this is the Prestige line, the 180E, I believe. And these things sound fantastic. And it's just nice to be able to buy something from someone that you know actually made it with their bare hands and it's got some history. They've been around for a long, long time. Check them out if you can. GradoLabs, I believe.com.
Grado Labs.
I think that kind of does it for the business. Oh, no. I'm going to just give a little quick shout. People on our Patreon. We're not going to go deep into Patreon right now, but as you're listening, be thinking of how cool a little Guitar Knobs orange barefoot button would look on your pedal. They are
So you can see it.
available now for our $5 tier and up line. So check that out. Go to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs.
They're awesome.
And you can see what we're talking about. Tony, what'd you do in your guitar world this week?
This week, kind of a fun project. This was for our good buddy Zach, also known as Jared's assistant.
He turns 21 tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Zach.
Do you get to adopt him now? Or is that what you're doing?
I would like to.
Yeah, I know. That's super weird. Okay.
He's a great kid, man.
He's not. He's an adult.
He's an adult.
But he's a kid to me.
But he's still an adult. That's the weird part.
Whatever.
Okay.
Well, anyhow.
So anyways, back to your guitar.
The story goes, back in 1959, there was an ES-175 that was made.
Yeah.
And Zach purchased the husk, meaning it had its pickups out and bridge, and basically it was just the neck and the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he said that the body had been refinned at some point.
Yeah, the body was refinned in the 70s with...
like a poly finish.
Yeah, with
So just to be clear, refin is...
a refinish.
Okay, so that means they strip all the paint, shellac, goo,
the old stuff.
The old stuff.
wallpaper.
Lacquer, the wallpaper comes off.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's...
You're down to bare wood.
Yeah, sometimes the carpet's there too.
Cool.
And then they put new stuff over the top of it.
Great.
But anyhow, the guitar itself is beautiful, but I think, Jared, you did some pickups for it.
Yeah,
And,
he did. Well, actually, he put them together.
oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
And then they came to me and said, hey, we need a pick guard for this. And it kind of it made me think about things that people should and should not do when it comes to trying to mount their own pickups or pick guards, on especially on archtop guitars. Now, this one, being from the late 50s, it has instead of a screw that goes into the top of the guitar, it has a pin that goes into the side of the neck. And it makes it a lot more difficult for someone who's not familiar with, working with that type of mounting to remount a guard that I make or anyone else makes. So it's a good idea if you have something that you're not super familiar with, if you have a local repair shop or luthier or whatever, let them do the work, because I put this on for Zach, and it does, there's a little skill involved with remounting these things. In fact, we did something a little bit different with this one, but it's made for a stronger mount, and but it's not something that just everybody can do.
I mean, he's going to be playing the thing probably every day.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy plays all the time.
Yeah. So it's, but I was real happy with how it came out. It's a nice solid mount. So we're in good shape there. So that was, in addition to all the other fun projects that I have that people send my way, that was one that was for a local guy.
As far as the way this thing plays too, I want to add, it reminds me a lot of my 1969 Gibson Dove. Just the way the neck profile is. And it's so easy to play. It's so easy to pick on. And this neck is fantastic. I love this guitar.
Excellent. How about we get John involved at this point?
Yeah, it's funny. We're on the tack of old Gibsons because a couple weeks ago I picked up a 91 Les Paul Studio, which those are my personal favorite Gibsons because you get all the sustain of like a really, really old one because it was before they started doing the weight relief and all that. Mm-hmm. But it's just a good player grade guitar. The one I had been sitting in a basement for like 15 years, and so I had to have my guy go through it, and we had a bit of a scare because the truss rod wasn't quite pulling enough, and he ended up he was like, I'm gonna have to refret this, and after some time, he realized that he could extend the range of the truss rod by sticking a couple washers under the nut at the top, and that did the trick. And now it plays like a dream, which is cool because that thing had really been mistreated for a while.
So is this one of the flat top studios?
It is a carved top.
Oh, it is a carved top. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it wine red with gold hardware?
No, it's black with gold hardware. Nice. Wine red was the one I really wanted a wine red with gold hardware, but I'd put up a Google alert and I was on the hunt because I'm kind of afraid the prices are going to start to go up with Gibson may or may not be going down the tubes. I figured now was the time to do it. So
cool.
I'm glad I did. Never owned a Gibson before, weirdly enough. Always had been a Fender guy.
Yeah, they're different creatures. I mean, just the scale length alone is enough to throw you.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've had both, and I jump back and forth. And one of the tricks that I do is like on my Fender scale length ones, I'll put 10 to 46s. But if I throw like an 11 to 48 on a Gibson scale length, it feels about the same. So you might try that.
Yeah. Well, it's like with string gauges, like I'd always come from playing Jazz Masters, which they're just happier if you put 12s or 13s on them.
Oh yeah.
And then my other main guitar is a Travis Bean, and that thing you could put bridge cables on it and the neck would stay straight. So, it's at this point I've just had to completely embrace whatever a guitar wants to do and just live with it, because if I try to get them to feel consistent, I'll lose my mind.
So on the Travis Bean, do you have a solid aluminum neck or the wood inserts?
That's a solid one. In fact, you'd said that Gibson earlier was a husk. This one was like a similar deal. There's this guy. I'm not going to name names, but people who collect Travis Beans and Electro-Harmonix pedals know who he is. This guy is just a hoarder. He's a crazy dude who lives in LA and hoards Travis Beans and vintage EHX pedals. And he's part of the reason why all that stuff is so expensive, because he was lecturing me on the phone about how he's like, oh, I owned 115 Travis Beans, which is like $15 million in guitars. And but he had cannibalized the pickups from this one and listed it on eBay. And so they had no pickups, no tuners. It was just, the bridge had been like half the saddles were non-original. So I had bought that guitar for a song and then sent it down to Electrical Guitar Co. to get it refurbished. And Kevin did an incredible job. Because, he even wound the pickups. They stamped out the pickups on the same hardware that they use for the vintage ones. And he's got all the, the drawings and the patents and stuff, and he owns the rights to them now with Travis Bean's widow. So they were able to do everything to the original spec. And it's still, I would call it like player grade vintage, even though it's a real iconic instrument from the 70s.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Best of both worlds, right? Because I don't feel like it's this like priceless relic that I can't play.
Right. But it's done right. It's done the absolute rightest way it could have been done.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I'm sort of like fleshing out the assortment. I didn't have a normal humbucker guitar, so I was like, this Les Paul will do the trick, and I'm loving it. The only thing that
if you were going to change anything on that, or maybe you would have to, would just be the pots themselves. They make really good pickup. Gibson makes good pickups. The pots, I think, would be something that I would replace down the road.
Oh yeah, they were shot.
Okay, so you already did.
Totally. Yeah, pretty much the whole thing. All the electronics got replaced. The pots were so corroded. The tone pot for the neck didn't even turn. It was in real bad shape.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, cool.
So
what about you, Todd?
Yeah, back to me.
Sorry, yeah.
No. The guests never say sorry. We don't operate like that.
Love means you never have to say sorry.
I'm blushing.
So let's see. We went out to the guitar show out in Indiana, and I think we're gonna probably be talking about that one for a little while. I think we all got some really neato stuff. One of the things that I got, speaking of neato stuff, was the Greer Moonshot pedal, which is a Class A germanium treble and mid-pre.
Ooh, it's a Rangemaster.
Yes, it's basically a Rangemaster. Yes. But it's one of the, I think for whatever reason, tonally, it's one of the ones that I kind of really locked into. I was at least intrigued by it. So I wanted to check it out. So I made a good trade. And so yeah, I'm excited to play with that. I've only been able to plug it in for like just a blip because I've been super busy, but excited to play with that. And we were talking before the show about, I'm looking down at my board and I'm like, where does this go? Because I got a couple fuzzes and overdrives and rats and boosters and stuff. And so it was just interesting to obviously I can sit there and play with it. It's a lot easier to have a better idea of it before you start unplugging everything and getting into that whole mess, because that's like an hour-long rabbit hole. But John, you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I really love Rangemasters. Like that's that like transistor boosters were the thing that I like first got into when I was building pedals. And the beauty of the Rangemaster is that it's a team player. Like it's only a team player. On its own, you kick it on and you're like, oh well, I'm louder, but I also sound anemic as hell. So it's you can but if you use that to goose the front end of something else, like a real dark tube amp, or even like a fuzz pedal or something, it all of a sudden will just push out the mids and the presence of whatever you're going into, and it tightens up your guitar tone. It gives you more sustain. It gives you just higher gain and cut through the mix. It does more of everything that you want and less of everything you don't want.
Right.
So if even if you can use it with the dark pedal, it sounds good. Even in front of a Rat, it'll sound good. In front of a Big Muff, if you have a real dark overdrive, like I like it in front of a Zvex Box of Rock. I think those sound better when set dark, but then you don't cut through the mix as well. So if you hit it with a Rangemaster, you balance it back out.
Right.
There's a million examples, or like an old Orange too. You get it to sound really dark and woolly, and then you use a Rangemaster in front, and all of a sudden you're just rock god territory. It's a perfect thing. But on its own, if you're playing a Rangemaster into a clean amp, it sounds really bad.
Yes, it does.
It's just not what they were made for.
Yeah. I actually had it at the end of my chain, and because again, that was the easiest place to to plug it in real quick.
Totally.
Typically, I have I've got a Boss equalizer with just the mids just kind of bumped up just like about a notch.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm just going to unplug that and throw it in. And then I said, this feels like it's going to take a while to dial in. I better not do this right now.
Well, I think, it's the sort of this idea of pre-EQ versus post-EQ. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pedals that have a treble and bass control. The bass control is at the front of the circuit and the treble control is at the output. So you can tighten up your guitar and then kill off the ugly harmonics that you don't want. Like that's why the Timmy is so nice. That's why like a Roots modded Rat is so nice. Any like 4-knob Rat usually will have like a sweep knob or they'll call it Roots or Focus. I've seen a million names for it, but it's all the same idea. Is if you're tightening up the low end into the front of something, then it just sounds better most of the time. If you go the other way and you boost the low end, you can turn anything into a fuzz. So I actually really like running EQs at the front of my chain because for the same reason that people like to stick a tube screamer in front of a 6505, you could stick a EQ that's got a low cut and a mid boost or a Rangemaster, which is going to do the same thing, but with that germanium flavor and sizzle. And it just brings the life out of stuff. It's so nice.
Yes. Now you got me all excited. I want to check this out.
This is why I love
take me out to dinner. Gee whiz.
It turns out I'm really excited about Rangemasters.
Yeah. Who knew? Right. But it is one of those things that I think there's just a handful of pieces of gear. Specifically, it seems pedals because they're the one additive. They're the tincture that we put into our So for everybody that doesn't know what tincture is, that's the little drops that the mustachioed man behind the bar is putting into your very overpriced drink. Anyways. I
thought that was a roofie.
Oh boy. The Rangemaster I think is one of those things where it's probably one of those pedals that a lot of people buy and either don't know how to use it right or give up trying. And it's a shame because it in the right hands, like it's the reason that that most people go out and buy that because they hear somebody do it right and then they can't figure out how to do it right.
Yeah. I mean, like that was the whole, even like Tony Iommi, it was, if you've got a guitar that's really dark and you tune it down and then you're running into a British amp and you set that kind of dark, you have nowhere to go but to boost the front end with mids or Brian May, using the normal channel of a Vox, it's kind of muddy. With a Rangemaster, you're all of a sudden, you're chiming away.
Yeah. Yeah, I dig it. I'm excited. You got this is good. This is good. I feel good about this.
So, unlock its potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you'll go back to Vox amps.
Nope. No, I won't. Anyways, it is interesting though because the fight for the front position is real. Between a really, really, really good fuzz, which I've got a couple of them, which I'm just absolutely bongo thrilled about. And so, I'm going to be curious to see how this works with it. All right. Why are you pointing at Jared?
What about me?
He didn't get to say anything.
I didn't even get a turn.
Go.
Well, we got used to you not being here.
Well, this week I got me a new pedal. We went to the Indianapolis Guitar Show, and
yes, Jared, we've been through all of that already. My gosh, can you speed this train up?
I got a pedal. That's it.
What'd you get?
I got a Mutron.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's a Phaser 2, and at first, Todd told me, "Hey man, there's an old Mutron back there. I think you should go check it out." And I'm like, it's probably a newer pedal. And because he said it was like for $300. I was like, that's one of those new ones.
Because right across from us was a guy who had the full blown console version,
the biphase,
like the whole. He had a whole bunch of that stuff.
Yeah,
Be Still My Heart.
Yeah, well, it was $1,500, so be still your heart.
Right. And so anyway, I went back to deal with the guy and talked him down to 230. So I got this.
You made it good.
Yeah, this biphase,
and it's in really good shape too. It's not all janked up.
Right.
Yeah, those finishes peel off like crazy. It's like old EHX pedals. They're just not durable at all.
Yep.
It's clean and it works great. I love this pedal because you can turn the rate down.
It's
you
one
can
of the
turn
best
everything
phasers I've ever
down.
heard.
So you could actually, not have a swirly phase and barely have it on. And I love the tone that it produces when you do that.
Yeah.
I just love the thing.
Yeah, why
don't you marry it?
I will.
All right. Hey, look out!
1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
Okay, hit us.
Here we go. So the first one, the Klon KTR. In short, it's a classic for a reason. It just like I didn't really get it until I started playing high powered tube amps where I could not get them to drive hard enough on their own. One of my go-to amps has always been an Ampeg V4. It's big, it's loud, it's kind of dark sounding, and it's clean. It's so clean. And if you don't want to get booed out of a club for people's eardrums bleeding, then people make fun of them now. But the whole transparent overdrive thing that's what it's for. And it turns out that was the same thing that Bill Finnegan went through when he was designing the original Centaur. And I will admit there is a measure of hometown pride. Bill lives in the Boston area and is like a very interesting guy. If you ever get a chance to run into him, he's just a really interesting and cool person. And it just like that to me is sort of the baseline guitar tone. It's it's your palette that you can paint on. It's the no nonsense, sounds good with everything, sounds, with every guitar, every amp, every mix, it just does the job. And it's classy, it's iconic, and you're supporting the guy who designed it. So it checks all the boxes for me. Nice. Yeah, I love that thing. Yeah, can't go wrong. Now on a completely different tack, number 2 for me is going to be the small sound, big sound Buzz. For all that the KTR is refined and does the job, the Buzz is an apocalyptic chainsaw. And, so that one, for those of you guys who might not know, it's based on the Super Fuzz, but it's got a lot of the mods that have sort of emerged over, the years. You can dial the octave scoop in and out. You can dial the octave in and out. You can dial the scoop in and out, and then you can adjust the clipping, the gain range. There's a voltage starve. So you can do the sort of dying battery thing, or you can do just a full on scooped out shreddy octave fuzz. And it's just amazing. If into a loud, dirty amp, especially, it sounds like the end of the world. It's incredible. People always say don't scoop your mids, but those people have not played a super fuzz. It just is like it's all like the huge bottom end and this really nasty sizzle, and then the inner modulation that you get from an octave fuzz, like playing a bend high up on the neck, like a unison bend, and you hear the other tones that sort of come in and go in a totally different direction from where you're bending. I live for that stuff. And so that's and Brian is also just a really, really nice guy. Great musician, great pedal designer. That thing is a particular favorite of mine.
That's awesome.
It's just awesome.
That's the third mention in a row of the original, the OG Super Fuzz. The orange and blue. Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, and if you don't want to pony up for a vintage one, the Buzz is my favorite for sure. That thing just shreds.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. So number 3, you guys don't even want to see the selection process. I had to go through this. It was brutal. Number 3 is the Mogerfoger MF104M delay. I got in on those before the prices went totally bonkers. Because it's truly nuts. Like I would never have gotten into this if it was the prices that it is today. But having one, it is my desert island pedal. Delay is my favorite effect, and that one is really just that's what it's all. Yep, that's what it's all about for me. I slap delay on everything, and that one you can use it as you can do long delays, you can do slap delays, you can do crunchy lo-fi stuff. You can use the LFO to get really weird, or you can do a really, really nice pitch vibrato. And it's got, it's got its own onboard gain. Like you can get it to clip, and it's very musical. Plays nice with other things. It just sounds awesome. And it does everything. I haven't even dug in really that far into the CV control and the expression stuff. I'll occasionally use an expression for the feedback or the LFO, but even on its own, it's just perfect to me.
Man,
it's killer.
I love that killing this 4 on the floor with the descriptions. This is great.
I did my homework. You guys got your blurbs to write out.
Like it.
But yeah, that thing is a desert island pedal for me for sure. So the last one is the Caroline Meteor. That one is another pedal that to me just never fails to inspire. It's I really like kind of metallic guitar sounds, like clangy and the sort of like bitey, like lots of harmonic content, like so much that you start to get string noise and pick noise, but it adds to what you're doing. And the Meteor is like the reverb version of that. It it has that really like, sort of rich clangy thing, and then of course you can overdrive it, which is a theme that I like with effects that ordinarily don't distort. Making them distort gracefully just adds to the whole. Especially with how it takes other pedals, with how it sounds into a dirty amp. If you take the Meteor and you crank that drive and then you run it into a dirty amp, it kind of reminds me of like a Fender Spring Reverb unit, those old tube Fender Spring Reverb units. But you're not limited by the Spring Reverb. You've got this more expansive, for lack of a better word, modern voiced, maybe plate voiced reverb. And then of course you have the Havoc switch where you can just let it go crazy if you want. So it does it all. It's great. And Philippe is a sweetheart.
Man, that was outstanding. That's the least I've talked my entire.
So can we go back to the first one, and could you talk a little more about it?
You know what? You have you've mentioned a couple things, and for I think for some listeners out there that are just maybe just getting into the pedal game, or just don't know. You talked about clipping and LFO a couple times. Would you mind just kind of elaborating on those terms?
Yeah, sure. The clipping is sort of, I guess, the electronic term for distortion. If you look at a pure sine wave, it's just going up and down. It's minding its own business. And if you use an electronic component which can sort of lop the top off of or bottom off of a sine wave, then we refer to that as clipping the waveform. And if you clip a waveform, then you get frequency products which are different from the original. We call those harmonics. And that's why people will refer to the harmonics of a distortion pedal, even or order harmonics, and like that sort of idea that distortion is just adding more stuff onto the top of a signal in order to give it this sort of richness. And some of those harmonics are ugly, but we like that. We like that ugly sound if, when used judiciously. Right. If you take a signal and you add every single harmonic to it, you get a square wave, which is a fuzz flavor that is usable and people like, but it's nasty too. It's, so there's a ton of shades in between. And you could talk about, how hard something is clipping, how smooth something is clipping. And that's a really good way to describe different textures of distortion and fuzz and tube amps and whatever else you might have.
Right. And so that's for those of us who are not familiar with a sine wave, it's essentially think about like when they're showing the little tiny readout, and there's an up curve and there's a down curve, and there's an up curve and there's a down curve, and there's an up. So when that's nice and smooth, you have an undistorted signal. But as soon as you start seeing it do kind of more jaggedy type things, that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good analog to what you're hearing. If it's a smooth change to the wave, then that's a smooth sound. And if it's a harsh change to the wave, then it's a harsh sound.
Right.
And you can look at it on a scope. I love oscilloscopes and showing people, different signals. Like, if you take a tube amp and when you're done troubleshooting it, it's common for just leave it on the bench, going into a dummy load at full tilt. And then you look at the output on a scope and you can say, oh, here's the point where it's clipping. And you can measure that waveform. And then you can say, okay, it's putting out, 60 watts, at 5% total harmonic distortion before it's, and that's the peak clean power that you get.
Right.
And it's cool to show that to someone who doesn't really know, like, oh, what's the waveform, or what's guitar turned into an electrical signal actually look like.
Right.
Scopes are awesome.
Yes, exactly. Cool. That was a super solid 4 on the floor. I'm very happy right now. Thank you. I feel very smooth myself right now, actually. I don't have any anxiety. It's great. So, for those out there who don't know who Electronic Audio Experiments is, you're a smallish pedal builder out of Boston making some big noise boxes. Maybe arguably your most notable one is the Model FET. Is that fair to say?
I think so. That's probably the one that's kind of riding the hype train. Right.
And instantly recognizable as a bare metal. I think one of the earlier uses of the bare metal box, by the way, if I recall.
Really?
Yeah. I seem to remember first seeing that as, because everybody was doing like insane graphics and colors and sparkles and everything. And yours was, a bare metal box, and you had the first one that I see has the red knobs on it, the red notched knobs, with the familiar Sun amp-esque kind of graphic on it. And I was just like, this is really interesting looking. And it looked like somebody who was technically minded actually put it together, not necessarily like, yeah, this is rock and roll, man. It was more like a different approach. It was interesting. It caught my eye the very first time I saw it.
For nerds by nerds. We didn't want to get a cease and desist from the band named after the amplifier, so we used the circuit symbol for a JFET and kind of made it into a sort of sun style logo. And that people seem to be into that, which makes me happy.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I think for the most part, I think it's fair to say that your pedals are pretty much riding the dirt train. Can we pretty much say that?
I would say that I'm working on growing out of that, but right now that's absolutely the case.
Well, it's funny. The reason I said really when you said my favorite effect is delay, because we got some pretty powerful boxes of sonic destruction sitting here. So that just that caught me by surprise. Like when we had Johnny from Daredevil, he loves fuzz, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
So that just kind of threw me off right there. But you were kind enough to send us 4 really outstanding pedals, and one of which, by the way, Tony and I both noticed this, and we both gave each other the oogle eyes, because on one of these the number is 000.
Oh yeah,
might be 000 actually.
Yeah, the that long sword, that was the first version 3 that I ever built. That was cool.
So hang on, wait a minute, I'm reaching for it. I don't want to knock things over. No, the Dude Incredible. Triple lock.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah, that one is also the first one I ever. Well, the first one I ever built that I actually could keep. Every time I build one for myself, I'd lend it out to somebody and they wouldn't give it back. So I'd reserved.
That's a good thing.
I'd reserved number 0 for myself, and I was like, I'm gonna keep this one.
Yeah,
and I did.
So that's that's actually really special. I think that's super special. Like we've had a couple of those where I've said, wow, you've entrusted me with your actual either number 1 or proto. That's really freaking cool,
Thank you.
So we felt honored to be holding the genesis by which you have gone forth. Big words. Sorry. Wait, not sorry because you can't understand. Just never mind. Anyways, also you have rad t-shirts. Everybody, if you want a rad t-shirt, you should go check out Electronic Audio Experiments and pick yourself up a rad t-shirt.
Yeah, if you guys like oscilloscopes. Yeah, that's my old Tektronix 453. It was one of the first non-vacuum tube oscilloscopes that wasn't crap. And you can still find them on eBay for like $200. It's huge. It's deceptively huge. It's like 2 feet long, like behind the panel.
I have a challenge for you.
All right.
I have a challenge. I don't know what band would be the best band to have this necessarily, but if you took an oscilloscope and basically gutted it, but turned it into a giant pedal that sat atop an amp.
I can't tell you how many times I've
That
wanted to
would
do
be
this.
amazing.
The thing, I mean, the thing weighs as much as a mid power tube amp. It's it's really crazy. You can take an old TV, like a CRT TV, and you can pick off the signal from your speaker jack, not from the amp itself, but actually like the power amp signal, and use that to drive the TV tube in parallel with your speakers. And if you set up the deflectors right, you can get an oscilloscope display on a big CRT monitor that goes along with your guitar signal.
Man,
Not for the faint
I don't
of
know
heart,
what
though.
you just said, but
All right, you guys know
like
the
dumbest guy in the room.
Okay,
usually.
the big old TV
Yeah, no,
monitors.
I got
they
that.
got a tube in them.
You
can
lost
use
me when you
your.
started talking about rocket launchers and stuff.
I'm sorry. My grandfather was he did TV tubes. He worked at the Magnavox plant down in Greenville, Tennessee, where they made Compactron tubes. And so I've learned a lot about that.
That's cool.
To try to figure out, like he passed away before I got into engineering. But I was like, wow, this is really cool. I wish I'd asked some more about it. So I've had to like find stuff secondhand and learn a lot about it. But it is extremely interesting stuff.
That's
that
neat.
technology.
That's neat. So while we're on that subject, why don't we just kind of find out how you kind of got into this? Where did you kind of get the music bug?
Oh man. So I started playing classical violin when I was 6 years old.
6.
And that's when if you want a kid to get into classical music, it's amazing how impressionable kids from like 4 to 6 are, especially by learning by ear. I didn't learn how to read sheet music until I was in middle school almost.
Did you use the Suzuki method?
Yeah. Yep. I was Suzuki. So
my guys are.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
what I started on.
Awesome. It's awesome. I'm glad your kids are doing it because like I really think that my life would not be the same if I hadn't done that. And I don't play violin as much as I used to. I was really serious about it and kind of got burned out when I was like 18. It was at the time where it's like, I could either go to school for this or sort of let it take a backseat to my other stuff. And but so when I was about 12 or 13, I picked up the electric guitar. And I went over to my brother's bed. It was his birthday, and I strummed that guitar as loud as I could to wake him up because it was his birthday present. And he played it for about a summer, and then he kind of stopped caring about it. And so I started using it, and I was enjoying it well enough. I played in like some crappy pop punk bands and stuff. But then I was in a band with this kid who had more money than sense, and he was always buying gear and leaving it places. And he left this rack reverb in my basement where we practiced. And I tried hooking my guitar up to it. And there was a preset on it, preset number 43, called Parking Structure. I'll never forget. This was some weird old Digitech rack reverb. And I just cranked all the knobs up and played a chord. And I was like, what is going on? This is like nothing I've ever heard in my life. And
Parking.
the rest, it's the preset number 43 on the Digitech DSP 16. And that thing it's a crazy sounding preset. It's great. And so that really kind of set me on a course. Later on when I was in high school, I worked as an intern at a place that made industrial joysticks, like PWM controllers and Hall effect sensors. And long story short, the trash can was a great place to get parts. And so I started building pedals with trash can parts when I was in high school.
Wow.
Because I had been bit by that technical bug so bad. And, so then eventually, like I was kind of known in the music scene here in Boston as a gear guy. And so when I started designing my own stuff for real, people were interested in it because they're like, oh, well, if this guy is so fed up with the current landscape of pedals that he's making his own stuff, he's got to be doing something interesting. And so, I had a couple close friends who I relied on for feedback, just giving stuff to local recording engineers, guys in bands who were touring more. And, that feedback really helped me shape what became the Longsword. So that was a pedal that was informed by guys who play, punk, emo, hardcore, stuff that comes out of here, like, younger guys stuff, and sort of capturing the set of tones from the early 90s to the mid 2000s, which come from a huge variety of sources, but no one has really nailed down yet, I think, in pedal form. And then with those, it sort of just kind of snowballed from there. And suddenly I had to, have a proper workshop in my house and not just be on like a folding table in the hallway. And it just kept growing from there. We did the model FET a couple months after that. And then there was a lot of like custom work and one-offs and stuff. The Dude Incredible came out as it was going to be a limited edition pedal for the Aluminum Guitars group on Facebook. And that ended up getting, because see, I'm a beanie pedal. Like I love aluminum guitars. I'm a big shellac fan. I was like, let's just do this goofy one-off pedal. And then I got 30 pre-orders for it in like a week. And I was like, what the heck do I do with this? Because these guys were like, I didn't know you could put the Intersound IVP in a pedal. And I can talk more about that later on. Because I was,
we'll
it's
get
one
into
of those
the
things.
pedal specifics. Each one of these on our table in deep.
It feels good to have an idea where you're like, are you sure that someone else didn't come up with this first?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure? Because that's when you know you're actually onto something. It's a great feeling. It's so rare, but it's so good.
That's cool. So we're edging on going deep into these pedals, but I think it sounds like, you were sort of destined to get into electronics and the like pretty early on.
I think so. I was definitely, my parents were very supportive of me taking things apart. Mm-hmm. I was very, very involved in different engineering projects when I was younger. I actually went to undergrad for physics. I kind of went through this bit more heady phase. And, after I finished undergrad, I was like, I want to do something more hands-on. And so I'm working on a PhD in integrated nonlinear quantum optics right now.
Holy moly.
Which is ostensibly under the electrical engineering department umbrella, but is really more of applied physics. And if anybody wants to email me to talk about what my thesis is on, I'd be happy to. I'm not going to turn this into, an episode of Radio Lab.
So basically you're going to make the most righteous wah pedal of ever. Is that what you're saying?
That's the goal. and tangled photons are the secret to the Hendrix tone.
Yeah, you'll get neutron price for them.
I love me some tangled neutrons.
That's awesome. So you actually, unlike a lot of people that we interview about pedals and stuff, they tend to kind of say, I had no idea. I'd never soldered anything before. I didn't know anything about circuits. I just started going. But you had the tools and you had the wherewithal to say, I know how to put these things together, like kind of right out of the gate, it sounds like.
It's both true and not true. I think, I did my undergrad in physics. So it was all very heady, math heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I ended up working my first job out of undergrad, I actually came back to the place where I'd interned in high school, as a quality control production engineer. And that was where I was like, you actually had to put stuff together. And then I came back to grad school and I'm working as a TA, and for intro level electrical engineering courses, and then even higher level stuff. And you have undergrads who don't know how to put a breadboard together because, what they're being conditioned to do is design stuff on a computer, simulate stuff, do a ton of math, and then work as a big team of engineers where the senior people have the hands-on experience of building stuff and the lower level people are doing the dirty work. Right. And then eventually through on the job experience, you learn how to build stuff. You learn how to work with your hands. But it's really not something, maybe in your senior project or something, but that's what I've really noticed at a lot of schools is it's like there's so much you have to learn just to work in this modern world of analog, digital, mixed signal, power electronics, computer stuff that you can't really go too deep into any one thing. So I had taken a couple engineering courses for fun when I was working on my physics degree to make things even more confusing. But when it actually came down to building a pedal or being like, well, how do I make a pedal that, does this thing that I saw in a textbook, but also sounds good on guitar, is extremely difficult. And that's why people kind of rely on the tried and true wisdom of an existing design. They'll say, the cutoff frequencies in the Ibanez Tube Screamer that make it so mid-heavy, it turns out there's a reason they chose those. Mm-hmm. If you made a pedal that was like a Tube Screamer, but it was flat across the frequency response, which is what a traditional engineer would want. You want it to be hi-fi and all that. Sounds really bad. It just sounds really, really bad. Mm-hmm. I know because I thought that would be a cool idea and I breadboarded it and it was terrible. So there's a lot of things you have to learn by being a guitar player. That's sort of the.
That's
you
mentioned breadboarding a couple times. I know that plenty of people out there are gonna say, "I know what a breadboard is, dude." But tell us what a breadboard is, will you?
So a breadboard is a big grid with holes, and the holes are connected electronically underneath. Then you can stick components in the holes to make a temporary circuit that you can use for prototyping. And it's great because you can hot swap the important stuff and then really get a feel for what it's going to sound like before you solder it up permanently and box it up. And you can desolder stuff, but it sucks. It's not fun.
Yeah. So I'm sure probably some of you guys have seen out there where it looks like there is a like mini like cookie or waffle looking type structure with a bunch of wires and diodes and transistors and all kinds of stuff, like just sort of sloppily. It looks a little sloppy how it's all put in, but it's, you know, you see all the pedal guts and it's all stuck on this little whiteboard. That's a breadboard. That's what we're referencing right now for those of you who don't know. But
if you want to see really pretty breadboards, check out Jack DeVille's Instagram. He is the most meticulous breadboarder I think in the history of mankind. It's crazy.
Do you know
very
what
nice
his
to look
handle
at.
is?
I think it's just Jack DeVille. He's the Mr. Black guy. For those
sounds
who
like a
are
pirate.
listening at home.
Jack DeVille.
Oh man.
Anyways, excellent. Excellent gets me out of anything. So let's talk about the pedals that you sent us, because
Absolutely.
we were all very, very excited about them. Right now on our little table here, we have the aforementioned Longsword. We have the also aforementioned. I guess I can't use that twice, can I? You just have to use that once. That is the model FET. That's F-E-T. Franklin. What's F? Foxtrot. Yeah.
Field effect transistor.
Field effect transistor, or
Echo
that
Tango.
model FET. Yeah, the veteran here couldn't get to the mic fast enough. Sorry, Jared.
What are you going to do?
And also we have the Dude Incredible pedal, which is pretty much that's apropos. We also have the Beholder, which is weird, and you're going to tell us more about it.
Yep.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I
Yeah,
believe.
that was like we were like yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, that's a wild card.
Yeah, totally. But it definitely, I could 100% see where it has its place, and that person that is going to look for that is just gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that I want.
Exactly.
So let's see. Why don't we go? I want to start with the Model FET first, because that's the first one that I plugged in. I think that's the first one. That
was the second one I
Second one.
plugged in.
Let's go with the Model FET.
All right.
Tell us all about it.
So that one, everyone wants a Sun Model T if you like big, like high wattage amplifiers. But most people don't have $3,000 to spend on one, if you can even find one. I wanted to know what the hype was, and I was like, let's see if I can do one of those like JFET style. The JFET is a kind of transistor, and people say they sound very tube-like. I think that's generally true if you treat them right. And buy them a little bit of dinner, approximate the Miller capacitance in a circuit simulator. So I breadboarded a Model T preamp, and I didn't like the sound of it.
Then before you go any further, give a little bit of color commentary on the Sun Model T. That's SUNN, folks.
Yes. Okay. So the Model T it shares a lot of DNA with the 5F6 Bassman. That's the amp that really started it all. Its descendants include the Plexi and the JMP and all that. But it's like a JMP that has just a crazy amount of bass, and a lot more clean headroom than you're used to from a JMP, which is a pretty formidably loud amp as it is. The model, or the Sun Model T has, it's about 150 watts power output. It'll flap your pant legs. but it also has this very unmistakable
skinny jeans. It'll do.
Even if you're wearing skinny jeans, it's an amp that's so iconic that a band named themselves after it, and that band is known for earth-shatteringly loud volume.
Right.
And so, I really wanted to know what the big deal was, and it's not like I could just go buy one. So, I did this preamp, and I was like, man, this thing sounds really limp. It's just not good. And so what I ended up adding to it on my breadboard was the power amp. So there's a simulated phase splitter. So every high powered amp has a thing called a phase splitter in it. And its job is to give a signal to pairs of tubes which work like a two-man saw to send that signal out into your speaker. And the reason for that is, in a two-man saw, each person is only pulling half the time. And that's the idea behind a class AB amp, is that each tube is only working on half the waveform. So one tube gets the top half and the other tube gets the bottom half. And you can do that. You can pair tubes up. So if you have 4 tubes, you can get even more power. And it turns out that the phase splitter, the part whose job it is to give the signals to the pairs of tubes, that clipping is so important for the sound of a lot of amps, especially when they're cranked up. When you crank up an amp, what a lot of people consider to be power tube distortion is actually the phase inverter. So if you add that to a tube preamp design, then you get even more grind out of it. You get more range of gain out of it. And you get that sort of clean, dirty sound, which is something that, that's just how I want every amp to sound. It's great.
Yeah, that's how we were kind of describing it when we were first talking to you. I kind of said, this makes me feel like I've got 2 amps. They're both mic'd that I'm running through. One of which is just like just completely blasting awesome, like pushed amp sound. The other one is massive amount of headroom and with just a little bit of hair on it. Right.
Yeah.
And essentially I was able to sort of blend these two, but hear them both clearly enough. That's what I was kind of explaining to Tony. And Tony,
yeah. See, my experience was a little different. It could be we had it set a little differently, but
yeah. Well, there are 6 knobs, so
yes, there are. But no, I think the thing that I noticed was if you were playing like single notes or simple runs, it was relatively clean. I mean, there was still a little hair on it, but if you played full chords, it jumped into distortion mode.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. So
that's what I'm saying with like a dual sort of, it had two sounds in it. It didn't.
Well, you said it very badly.
I probably did. I probably did.
Mine, of course,
it didn't homogenize
precise.
the sound. It didn't homogenize the sound just because you had that selection.
Right. Yeah. It was not like individual notes were like,
That's like what I said before.
Well, but I said it better. But so is that the product of the FETs or the
I would say it's tough because like JFET distortion like has that kind of round edge to it, but if you push them too hard, they get this kind of like hash around like 1 to 3K, like it's sort of just like right in that earworm spot. And so the trick is if you cascade a bunch of them and you filter it and you sort of push, you don't push too many low frequencies into it. Then in between each stage, then sort of the little bits of harmonics build on each other with every stage. And that's sort of why it's harmonically rich, because every little piece is contributing to the whole rather than one stage that's just being clipped into oblivion.
Right. No, that was a cool one. I enjoyed that pedal.
I'm glad you guys like it.
Yeah, a lot.
It's
pretty cool.
Let's see. What was the first one that I picked? I think, what's the...
That's the
Long sword.
Long sword.
Long sword.
So what was the genesis behind the name on that one?
It cuts through the mix. Also, I really like D&D. That's basically
No.
Okay.
Other than that, yep. The EQ is inspired by the Ampeg V4 because you have James.
Time out.
Oh.
Let's give the sort of one sentence. What is in this? What does this box do?
Oh, sure. So the longsword is an op-amp distortion. It's very much in the vein of the anything from the DoD 250 to the full tone OCD to even buried deep somewhere in its shriveled black little heart, the boss metal zone. They all share the same kind of idea, which is you've got an op amp that's doing the heavy lifting and diodes that clip the signal, like we were talking about earlier,
right.
To get distortion. And op amps are beautiful. There's a ton you can do with them, and so the goal was to make a very versatile distortion box.
Well done. That's
Thank you.
Well, that's what it did. It felt more I would say focused.
Mm-hmm.
Some might actually say maybe limited, but I don't think it's limited. I think it's just more focused. By limited, totally. I just mean in comparison to these other two, which have such a wide range.
Oh yeah.
Tonality and distortion that you can get from the other ones on the table, but that one felt like sort of like this is what this does.
Yeah. The EQ is it's almost a finishing EQ in that sense. Mm-hmm. It's you match it to your amp, you match it to the room you're in, you match it to your other guitar player, your drummer, and your bassist. Because like it's always going to dish out that sort of its tonality. But it just those little cuts and boosts really make the difference in sounding good. Especially if you're playing like a club gig or something where the sound is, there's a sound guy, but it's cluttered. It's full of people. There's it's a tiny stage. All that it really, really makes a difference to have that control.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think some of these other ones like the Model Fet and the Dude Incredible have the time that you spend to get those very subtle cues on your tone where you're just like just a little bit more, and they're like, ooh, there's a buried harmonic that I couldn't even hear before.
Yeah.
Like that isn't bothered with to the degree on this one. The longsword.
The longsword.
I won today.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So in addition to the level and the drive and the low, mid, highs, there's two little micro switches. One says frequency and one says clip.
We do love a good toggle switch.
All right.
So
this isn't guitar switches, you guys. Keep it in your pants.
So tell us about those.
So the frequency toggle is tied to the mid control. If it's going to the right, then the mid control is boosting and cutting at 1K. And that's really great if you got a muddy guitar and you want to just like cut. Or if your drummer is all over the place with the cymbals and you want to get out of his hair, then you can actually pull 1K back and kind of give that territory back either to the drummer or to the vocalist. And if the switch is left, it's at 300 hertz. And if you crank it up, then it just takes you right into like steamroller territory. It's great on bass. It's a little much on guitar, though I do like having the option. But cutting 300 is that's my favorite frequency. Like if you just have to notch something out to sound a little more clear, then notching out 300 sounds really, really nice. So that mid function really has like the mid knob and the frequency toggle together can really give you those four things, which is, mid forward boost, nasty boost, mud cutter, or like pull back out of the mix a little bit. The clip toggle is for the clipping diodes, which is, really like the op amp or the clipping diodes work together to give you that sound. And it's going to adjust the kind of the compression and the feel of it. And the reason I left that one unmarked because that's a sound that you really kind of find your favorite one and set it and forget it. And then just use, ride that. I don't want people obsessing over the diodes that are in there. I pick the ones that I really like, I think sound good and give you a wide range of options. But if you start obsessing over specific diodes, then you're missing the point of playing the guitar. So it's better to just pick the compression level you want and have a good time.
As we often say, use your ears.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you do decide to build a kind of a range master kind of thing, you could call it the mud cutter, since you already have named that now. Toggles are cool. The micro toggles, yeah, that's the good stuff. Anyways, I love that you put this in the context of a band because I think so often we get a pedal that we think we love and we play it and we sound amazing, and then we get it and with the, as you said, somebody's writing cymbals really hard, or you get a bass guy that your frequencies just are not jiving with, and then you're like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah, it's rough.
Because that's the pedal that I've been practicing with for weeks.
I believe you flip the toggle to the left.
You flip the toggle to the left. Yeah. Or yeah, do that. Just do that. So
always.
Yeah. But anyways, I do appreciate that, because I think sometimes pedals, we love them, but they can be singularly voiced or singular purpose in nature. And having something on your board that gives you that punch that you want, but still you can really be versatile with, as we're going to roll into the next one. I think the Dude Incredible, which has gobs of versatility on it.
Oh yeah,
I had a ton of fun playing with that, and
That's a good one.
immediately
thank you.
saw how useful this could be, especially in a band setting.
Cool.
Tell us about it.
Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I want to hear everything you guys have to say, because this is really, it's great feedback. So the Dude Incredible is a very blatant homage to shellac. They've been one of my favorite bands for a while, particularly after seeing them live. I was like, oh wow, I get it now, and now I'm kind of obsessed.
Where are they from?
And so Shellac is a Chicago band, sort of like, I would say, one of the main figures in the like touch and go records, noise rock scene.
Okay.
Steve Albini is their guitar player and their singer. He runs Electrical Audio, which is a pretty well known studio. And he has an approach that I really sympathize with. It's a very kind of elevated utilitarian approach, which is like, no bells and whistles, but also do things really, really well and precisely. And his guitar rig consists of this weird preamplifier called the Intersound IVP. And that's the left side of the Dude Incredible. It's got, the original one is a full rack preamp. I've got one here right next to me in my workshop. It's got two channels that are one clean, one dirty. It's got a huge EQ, the bass and treble knobs that are on the pedal, but also a 4-band parametric mid EQ. And it's got this very interesting distortion circuit, which uses a transformer in it, which is pretty uncommon. Normally, you don't see transformers in pedals except to generate like an octave when there's techniques for that. But this is there just to basically filter the signal in this really unique way, where no matter where you set the pedal, it's never too harsh. And it also, if you give it too much bass, as I'm sure you guys probably noticed, if you crank the bass knob, it starts to lose its mind. It's just very unique. And so that's like, if you set that to mid gain, that's pretty close to like the shellac kind of dirty rhythm tone. And then if you want to take it over the top, the harmonic percolator, which is the more famous component of Steve Albini's rig, other than his Travis Bean 500. The harmonic percolator is this very weird fuzz that was made, I think it was from Wisconsin. And there are a few really good clones of it on the market now. As there should be, because it's a really great circuit. But I was like, oh, let's put both of them in one box, and you can just have this, get this one guy's sound. But then after I made the thing, I was like, wow, you could do so much with this. You can do more normal rock sounds. You can run the whole gamut of different 90s tones, and you can even do like doom metal or something with it if you wanted to. It just is, stacking those two sides really gives a lot of options. So that was kind of the motivation. But I think the IVP is the real winner in that pedal, because it's just such a nice sounding preamp. And my favorite thing about it is that the EQ is before the clipping element. So you're basically you're choosing which frequencies get pushed into distortion sooner than others. So like if you crank the treble, high frequencies will distort more than low frequencies. And if you crank the bass, then low frequencies distort more than high frequencies.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Cool.
Man. So in my head, as you were trying to describe that sort of utilitarian-ish sound, but still with kind of a bit of brute force, maybe.
Yeah.
I was thinking sort of Drive Like Jehu, Hot Snakes. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I think one of them might have made a record at Electrical Audio, though I don't keep tabs on every single band that does every single studio, whatever. But
Sure.
like it's definitely in that kind of vein.
Okay. Yeah.
Shellac is a little more minimal, in your face, repetitive than those bands, but definitely a similar thing.
Check it out, because I do like the ones that Drive and Hot Snakes I'm fond of those bands, so I'll have to give Shellac a listen.
Definitely.
Have anybody out there is like, dude, how do you not know what shellac is? I'm sorry. I try to keep up.
Listen, there's a billion bands out there.
Yeah, there are.
Better late than never,
But the idea that you actually created a pedal based on that sound is pretty impressive. And this is really an impressive pedal.
Thank you.
I think when you look at something and you say, I'm not sure if I use this to weld or to it has such a like an industrial esqueness to it with I think the color, and it feels like a piece of machinery that I would hurt myself with if I tried to make something. Lots of dials and blue and green, red, or red and green lights and stuff.
The original IVP has a very similar scheme, and my Zach, my right hand guy and graphic designer, did a really good job kind of capturing that essence with this pedal. Because we just I just love the look of that so much. It's such an iconic piece of equipment.
A lot of industrial style equipment tends to have lots of strange badgings and mixed fonts all over the place. I don't know, let's make this italic over here for no reason.
Yeah.
And it just has that. And that is my background. So I geek out on that kind of stuff. So I really appreciated that.
Totally.
All right, now we have last and certainly not least, but certainly least understood by us. The Beholder. Yeah, the Beholder.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
So there's another. That's the Beholder.
So that's another D&D monster for you. The Beholder is the one that's like a big mouth with a bunch of tentacly eyes, and it lives underneath the earth and will kill you if you come across it.
Yes.
Which is pretty fitting for. So this one actually has the earliest version of what would become the Beholder is actually older than the Model Fet.
The older Beholder.
Yep. I was sticking fuzz circuits in people's EHX Holy Grails as early as 2014.
It just sounded really weird. I was sticking fuzz circuits in people's EHX holes.
Yeah, the Holy Grail reverb, like the big box one.
Oh yeah.
That circuit board doesn't take up a lot of space in the enclosure. It's a great mod platform, and if you patch in a fuzz before the mix pot, then you can get this really nasty, dirty, fuzzed out reverb.
Jeez, that sounds cool.
And I had seen this. There was this guy who had a really cool pedal blog, and I don't think he's doing anything anymore, but he had done this with a fuzz circuit. And he was like, this is a cool idea, but I feel like someone could take this further. And I was like, sounds like a great thing for me to do. And so I was messing around with this, and eventually I was like, oh, well, the Holy Grail is ultimately not a satisfactory platform for me to do this. So let me try to cook up my own reverb circuit. And then by the time I cooked up a reverb circuit I was happy with, the fuzz I had been using was not doing the job. So then it was this endless back and forth, and I've been working on it on and off since probably 2015 or 2016. And so it's finally going to be seeing the light of day. We're releasing them at the end of the month. We've got the first batch going up, and there's a demo by A Bunch of Pedals, who's a great YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And he did it with synthesizers and drum machines and stuff to really show that it's just an all-purpose mangler. So to actually get into what the pedal itself is, it's a reverb that's going into a fuzz. So you turn it on and all of the reflections of your reverb are just completely destroyed. That is what it does. It is a pedal for noise, for soundscaping, for that part at the end of the set where you want to just be as loud and obnoxious as possible. That's what it's for. And it's not, I'm absolutely positive that it's not for everybody. But this kind of represents my first foray into non-distortion effects, even though it is itself very much a distortion effect. But as I want to get into other things, which I have a lot that I've been obsessing over trying to get out. This was the first thing that actually met my criteria for what I wanted, and could actually get out there. That's not a dirt box.
That's awesome. This, I mean, that's pretty much all the stuff you described was where we were sort of struggling to like, what?
Yep.
I mean, look, it says beholder and then it says aberrant reverberator. Mm-hmm. So chances are you don't know what that is, everybody out there, which should give you a clue on what
It looks like
into.
a big thing of lightning. Is that lightning?
Yeah.
Like plasma.
I don't know what that is.
something.
So like my guy Zach, he does the fonts and the layouts and all that, logos and everything. But every once in a while for a graphic, we'll hire out another artist. And so we hired another Boston-based artist. His name is Dylan Sylvester. We played a band together too that hasn't released anything yet, but nonetheless. And he does these really cool sort of geometric and textural pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one, I think it actually was like plant cells or something that he messed up in Photoshop, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Wow.
I'm gonna say that it's the last thing you see before the beholder kills you.
Right.
Maybe.
Also true. Probably also true.
Yeah, and then the drone was really interesting. It wasn't overt as I thought it was going to be. It's a very subtle drone, so it's not something that you hit and you just be like, okay, ease up on that drone switch there.
Yeah,
buddy.
totally.
It's a nice just additional texture to where like if you are running like say you do it at a lead area or some sort of bridge and a really nice way to transition out, you hold that drone down and let your signal kind of die out. That's cool.
I wanted to add that
Thank you.
the color purple is just gorgeous. I love that paint finish that you
Thank you.
did on that pedal. It's just
Yeah,
That
it's
one,
kind of like there was a whole bunch of scientists and then CC DeVille showed up.
I know. Totally.
We get our enclosures done at Disaster Area Designs, and I had been going back and forth. We were trying to pick between two powder coat colors, and their print guy was like, "Oh, you want to just do a fade?" And I was like, "I didn't even know that was possible." I have a very rudimentary knowledge of powder coating, so this is a surprise to me. And he sent me a photo of the test proof, and I was like, "Yes, we have to do that." So the first 30 that we're building have that finish, which I just love. It's crazy. We'll do something a little bit less labor intensive for future ones, but I just love that fade and I wanted to do it.
Well, and for the super nerds out there, this actual enclosure is kind of unique. It's one of the more unique ones that I've seen because it does end up looking like it's anodized almost. Although obviously it's not, but the corners on the base plate, the rest of the box has rounded edges, but the corners on the base plate are squared off with a little lip on it. It's just kind of this is the kind of stuff that I like. I pay attention to, whatever. But it's like, oh, look at that. There's those little things right there. It's kind of
Totally.
nice. I like it.
Good stuff,
man.
Thank you.
That must have been a hard one, I think, on some levels to actually say, okay, it's done because of the subtleties that this sort of hangs on. It almost kind of sits back. It doesn't really pronounce itself. At least the way I was playing with it, it almost sounds like you're hearing it down a hall or in a box or something like that.
Yeah. The reverb part of the circuit is kind of pinned at a high mix in order to force you to play with the reflections and the overtones rather than saying, okay, I'm playing guitar and it's like I'm in a cave. It's like, no, you are the cave now. And the cave is eating you alive.
Yes. Anyhow, yeah. So, hey, everybody needs to go check out the Electronic Audio Experiments website.
Right now.
And it's fair to say, I mean, these pedals are sort of limited run pedals. I don't mean you're never going to do them, but it's not like there's a huge abundance of them out there, right?
This is true. We are a little, since I'm still in school, and I've got only like a couple guys helping me out. It is slow for us to build. And we put a lot of time into these. Everything is, very painstakingly done. So I appreciate people being patient between new batches because, we love getting stuff out there, but it's, things do definitely take some time.
Right. And I think it's really easy, especially if you're, messing around on Reverb, to kind of, sometimes we put a gauge on whether a pedal is good by how many we see. And if we see too many of them, maybe it's not so good.
Yeah.
But if you don't see any, you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't good enough. It's something that we kind of do as humans, whether it's something at the grocery store or at Reverb. But I can assure you, peoples out there, you probably won't see a whole lot of these out there in the used market, because people who have them, I think, tend to keep them, and you didn't make a ton of them. So if you do see one, grab it.
Yes, grab it.
So Jared,
It is time for Would You Rather? All right. This week's
All right.
Would You Rather. So you walk into your local guitar repair shop and a customer bailed on a Gibson Les Paul Standard retop. He must have ran out of money for whatever reason. So your buddy there at the shop says, hey, you have an opportunity to buy this for super cheap.
Ooh.
And the top on it is a fairly good figure on the top. It's a two-piece
medium.
top. Yeah, it's a medium. It's like you could go either way on either a burst, or are you going to get a gold top?
Ooh.
Have it painted
I think-
gold or a burst?
I'm going to go gold, hands down. That's classy. And if I really don't like it, then I'll paint it black on top of that and pretend to be Neil Young.
there you go.
Secret option C.
That's
I like it.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
I love that. That's actually my Jag bastard that I'm kind of building is got that same kind of thing going on.
Right?
I love it. I love it.
Antoine.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing if it doesn't have a lot of flame, which it doesn't sound like it does.
It's half flame. It's
Still not
bad.
enough.
I want me some flame.
But look, those older ones weren't like all mega flamed out either.
Many of them were. I mean, late 50s. Yeah.
They had no
Not
idea
like
what they
PRS
were.
style like right now,
Yeah.
like custom shop, like where they're like
Yeah,
quadruple billion A
Right.
flame.
Right.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. Do what you want.
Like the weird ribbon looking
This isn't a flame podcast, thank goodness.
There was the photo flame that Fender had rolled out a long time
Many
ago.
tried that.
Yes, it doesn't work.
It's rough.
I'm, since it's not super flamey, I'm going with a gold top.
All right.
But I would like, what I love about gold tops is when the clear breaks off and they start to turn green.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that look.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is good. Jared.
Well, I had a 1971 Gibson Deluxe, and it had a gold top finish on it. And it had that green oxidation-y look going on. So, if I was in this situation, I'm going to go gold. I'm totally going to go gold because, when I'm 75, 80 years old, I want to see if that gold does the same thing that my 71 did.
Interesting.
Of course.
We're all of a mind here.
Yes, I'm going gold as well because I really do love gold colored things. But I want to go, I kind of want to make it Bronson-esque a little bit, and I'm going to go black back.
Okay.
I mean, while he's painting it, I'm just going to say black back, gold top. Why not, right?
Of course, you could
Like
always pay him more to retop it with
Anyways.
some foray.
No, I don't want that. I don't want it. I don't like it. Okay. Whoo-wee, doggies. This is some good stuff here.
Great podcast.
I feel like I learned a whole lot. My head almost exploded a few times.
yeah.
But, I made it out alive. I hope you, everybody listening, are enlightened with these awesome pedals that our friend John here made by hand. Handmade by hand.
Handmade for now.
Where can they go to see your wares?
electronicaudioexperiments.com or Instagram at electronic audio experiments. Not too hard to find. and I like Instagram a lot, so pretty easy to reach me there. I also like email a lot. And if anyone is confused or curious about the nerd stuff, then please get in touch, because I really enjoy talking about this stuff.
Awesome. You're really good at it too, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank
I would
you.
trust you with machinery. And
I have approximate knowledge of many things.
And then let's see, Tony,
I am.
where can
I'm going to
people
go
find
with
your
the
stuff?
gold.
Yes. Oh, good man. Where can they find your stuff?
Oh, they can go to pickguardian.com.
Excellent.
If you need a nice, really nice custom pick guard
Yes, to go with your gold top.
to go with your gold top,
Yeah,
come and see me.
awesome.
I know a guy.
Good. They can make it.
Or you can
Jared,
go onto the social media.
social media, all the social media.
All of them.
Good. Jared.
Okay, if you need a pickup repaired or you need a whole nice new set of pickups, Jared, Jared, at BrandonWildPickups.com or BrandonWildPickups.com, and my email is on my website.
Perfect.
Please visit me.
Perfect. And then we want to say a massive thank you to our friends, our patrons on Patreon. Tony,
Oh, is that my cue?
that is your cue.
So let's just say that you really enjoy this podcast.
I
Settle
really enjoy
in.
this podcast.
Okay, Todd does. Go over to patreon.com
Okay.
/
The
Guitar Knobs. And there you will find several different levels that you can participate in, ranging from,
1, 5, 10, and 20.
there you go.
Yep.
And at the $20 level, those become our executive producers.
Nope.
No.
That's a $10 level.
Holy
Look,
moly.
I just discounted everything.
All right, everything's half price today.
Yeah.
So let's just say you want to become an executive producer.
Yep.
You know, you get a
$10
nice
a month.
prize package, $10 a month.
What's on the list, Tony?
Jared, what's one of the biggest benefits?
Well, you get your name read on the thing.
Yeah, and realistically, you do get a T-shirt, you get a barefoot button with our logo on it, and you get an awesome sticker pack from all kinds of guests that have been on the show, and you get your name read on the thing.
Nicely. So without further ado,
Yes.
I'm going to read our executive producer list.
Thank you.
Let's start with Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, David Wolfson, Matt Brammer, Carlos Mancha, Pete Marshall, Derek Fitzer, Robin Smith, John Daly, Oliver Gonzalez, Sean S. Chris Kearney, John Anglin, Robert Marfleet, Alex Leggett, Darren Gregory, Gary Goodman,
And his son Beckett. He gets in by default.
Yep.
Oh, Beckett. That's right. I forgot about Beckett.
There he is.
And let's not forget Zach J. Wright.
That's right. Zach J. Wright. Hey, everybody. We are just super happy you joined us. And,
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
We look forward to next week when we get to do this again. And we appreciate all your support. If you have anything to share with us, your rigs, your pedals, your guitars, a cool Guitar Knobs t-shirt that you bought that are you wearing somewhere, whatever it may be, share it with us wherever we are.
We comment and answer.
Yes, we appreciate you. Have an awesome guitar week. Subscribe!
Yeah.
Approximate the Miller capacitance in a circuit simulator.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.